Imagine you are playing a massive multiplayer video game. In this game, your character needs health points to survive, materials to build weapons and shelters, and energy to move around and complete missions. Now imagine that the game you are playing is not a simulation, it is real life on planet Earth. Every single thing we need to survive, build, and power our modern lives comes directly from nature. We call these our natural resources. Today, we are going to look at the hidden inventory of our planet, how we use it, and why some of these items are running out faster than we can replace them. Let's break down our planet's resources by how we actually use them. First, we have the resources essential for life. These are non negotiable: air, water, and food. You cannot build these in a factory. They are perfectly provided by the atmosphere, our rivers, and our soil. Without them, it's game over. Second, we have resources for materials. Look around your room right now. Your wooden chair, your metal phone, the concrete walls of your house. Nature provides the wood, the iron, the marble, and the gold we use to construct the physical objects in our world. Third, we have resources for energy. This is what powers our modern civilization. The electricity keeping your lights on, the fuel moving your car, the massive machines running factories. All of this energy comes from burning coal, drilling for petroleum, capturing sunlight, or harnessing the wind. But here is where the game gets incredibly dangerous. We have to look at our inventory based on renewability, whether an item can respawn or if it is gone forever once we use it. Let's talk about nature's restorative power. Have you ever accidentally cut your finger? Give it a few days and your body miraculously heals itself. Nature does the exact same thing. If a wild forest catches fire, over time, new seeds will sprout and the forest will regenerate. Nature operates in perfect zero waste cycles. When a massive tree falls in the forest, it doesn't just sit there as trash. Fungi, bacteria, and insects immediately go to work breaking that dead wood down into rich nutrients that feed the soil, allowing brand new plants to grow. This brings us to renewable resources. These are resources that naturally replenish themselves in a short period. Think of sunlight, wind, and forests. As long as we let nature run its natural cycle, these resources will always be there. But here is the terrifying catch: renewable does not mean indestructible. A forest is renewable, right? But if a logging company cuts down trees significantly faster than they can grow back, that forest will be destroyed completely. Water is renewable, but due to irresponsible human actions, we are literally draining rivers dry before the rain can refill them. And human interference goes even deeper. Because we burn so much fossil fuel for industrialization, global temperatures are rising. This is causing the massive glaciers in the Himalayas, the literal water towers that feed our major rivers, to melt much faster than new snowfall can replace them. Quick break. If you are finding this breakdown helpful and want to understand every tricky concept in your syllabus with this much ease, hit that subscribe button right now. Thousands of students are learning with us, and we don't want you to miss out. Let's go. Now let's talk about the absolute most critical part of our inventory: non-renewable resources. These are resources that take millions of years to form deep underground. Once we dig them up and use them, they do not respawn. They are gone forever. We are talking about fossil fuels like coal and petroleum, and metals like iron, copper, and gold. Take coal in India, for example. We have massive reserves of coal, and we burn it constantly to generate electricity for our rapidly growing population. But those reserves are strictly limited. At the rate we are burning it right now, our coal might only last for another 50 years. 50 years! That means within your lifetime, a massive source of our country's power could completely run out. Until we can completely shift to clean, renewable energy like solar and wind power, we have to treat these non renewable resources like the incredibly precious, limited inventory that they are. Because in this game of survival on Earth, there are no cheat codes for infinite resources. It is entirely up to us to use what we have wisely before the inventory drops to zero.
Have you ever wondered why India's rulers and borders changed so often? Or what made this land so attractive to invaders? In this chapter, we step into India's medieval period, roughly the 11th to the 17th centuries, a time of big changes, foreign invasions, and powerful new dynasties. The word medieval originally comes from European history, but in India, historians use it a bit differently and don't always agree on exact dates. What we do agree on is this: rulers from Central Asia, Turks and Afghans, kept entering the subcontinent, chasing wealth, territory, or the spread of their beliefs. Wars and alliances kept redrawing India's political map. As we travel through this story, you may see different spellings for the same rulers or dynasties, like Khilji and Khalji, or Mughal and Mughal. And remember, even during conflict, Indian society adapted, absorbed, and created, becoming a rich, dynamic mix of ideas. The Delhi Sultanate is usually traced to 1192, after the defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan in northwestern India. Over time, five Turkic-Afghan dynasties ruled from Delhi: the Mamluks, or slave dynasty, the Khiljis, the Tughlaqs, the Saids, and the Lothis. The Sultanate dominated much of the north, but powerful kingdoms in the south and east, like the Eastern Gangas and the Hoysalas, resisted and continued to develop their own cultures, administrations, and art. This era was turbulent. Frequent wars, heavy raids, and plunder of towns, villages, temples, and centers of learning fed the Sultanate's treasury and armies. Political power was unstable. Nearly two-thirds of the sultans came to power by killing a predecessor, so reigns tended to be short, about 9 years on average. Alauddin Khilji stands out for large military campaigns across northern and central India and for successfully repelling Mongol invasions. His coinage signaled imperial power, and his famous general Malik Kafur led deep raids into the south, reaching Srirangam, Madurai, Chidambaram, and possibly Rameswaram. The wealth from these campaigns supported a formidable army. Muhammad bin Tughlaq briefly controlled the largest empire since the Mauryas. His bold experiments, however, failed. He shifted the capital from Delhi to Daulatabad to improve control, forcing people to march more than 1,000 kilometers, then shifted it back. He also introduced token currency, declaring copper equal to silver and gold. Counterfeiting exploded and trade suffered. While sultans and elites lived in luxury, palaces, fine clothes, jewelry, their wealth often came from conquest, heavy taxation, and the slave trade. Enslaved people were used as unpaid labor or sold to Central Asia. Attacks on Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain temples were driven by both loot and iconoclasm. Some rulers levied the jizya tax on non-Muslims, adding economic burden and social humiliation, which sometimes pushed people toward conversion. In the late 14th century, Timur, a Turkic-Mongol invader, stormed into North India, devastated Delhi with mass killings, enslavement, and plunder, and left behind chaos. The Lothis emerged later as the last Delhi Sultanate rulers, but growing resistance all around limited their control. So this was all about the rise and fall of the Delhi Sultanate.
Imagine you are 16 years old. Most 16-year-olds are busy worrying about their studies, their friends, or what game to play next. Now, imagine being 16 and deciding you are going to overthrow the most powerful, terrifying, and heavily armed empires in the world, using nothing but a small group of friends, the thick forests of your homeland, and the element of absolute surprise. This isn't a movie plot. This is exactly how one of the greatest empires in Indian history began. Welcome to our topic, the rise of the Marathas. For centuries, the Marathi-speaking people of the Deccan Plateau were deeply spiritual. They were united by the Bhakti movement, singing devotional poetry written by great saints like Jnaneshwar and Tukaram. But in the 17th century, these poets and farmers transformed into a terrifyingly effective political and military force. And it all started with one boy, Shivaji Bhosle. Born in 1630, Shivaji had a radical vision called Swarajya or self-rule. He realized that to defeat massive, heavily armored armies like the Mughals or the Bijapur Sultanate, he couldn't just line up his troops in an open field. He had to be smarter. So he perfected guerrilla warfare. He used the rugged, mountainous terrain of Maharashtra to his advantage, launching lightning-fast surprise attacks with small groups of soldiers and then vanishing back into the forests. His tactics were legendary. When the giant Bijapur general Afzal Khan tried to trap him in a one-on-one meeting, Shivaji came prepared with a hidden weapon called a Vagh Nak, a metal tiger's claw, and defeated him. Later, he executed a daring midnight surgical strike right inside the heavily guarded camp of Mughal general Shaista Khan, forcing the terrified general to flee out a window. But Shivaji wasn't just a master of land combat. He looked at the vast Arabian Sea and realized something nobody else had. Whoever controls the water controls the wealth. So he built a massive Maratha navy. At a time when powerful European ships were bullying Indians into buying trade passes just to sail in their own waters, Shivaji flipped the script. His navy became so powerful that he actually started demanding passes from the Europeans. By 1674, after looting the rich Mughal port of Surat and securing his borders, Shivaji was officially crowned Chhatrapati. Now you might think a warrior king would rule with an iron fist, taxing people to death. But Shivaji was an administrative genius. Instead of letting rich landlords hold on to power generation after generation, he banned hereditary posts. He paid his officials in direct cash to keep them loyal. And he constantly transferred them so nobody could build a rival army. He set up a brilliant council of 8 ministers called the Ashtapradhana Mandala to run the government smoothly. And if a soldier died in battle, the state provided a pension to his widow and offered a job to his son. He actually cared about his people. To fund all this, the Marathas collected smart taxes. They charged a 25% tax called Chauth to neighboring provinces in exchange for military protection. And the backbone of their entire defense? Forts. Shivaji's ministers knew that without forts, a kingdom falls in days. With them, the Marathas survived decades of relentless attacks. But in 1680, at just 50 years old, Shivaji passed away. The Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb thought this was his golden chance. He invaded, captured Shivaji's son Sambhaji, and brutally executed him. He thought he had crushed the Marathas forever. He was dead wrong. The Marathas didn't quit. They fought back harder. And some of their most terrifying leaders were women. Take Tarabai, the widowed queen. She didn't just defend her forts, she actively launched massive invasions deep into Mughal territory. Or look at Ahilyabai Holkar, who ruled central India for 3 decades, bringing immense prosperity and rebuilding destroyed sacred sites like the Kashi Vishwanath temple. Over the 18th century, the Maratha prime ministers, known as the Peshwas, took the empire to its absolute peak. They pushed their borders all the way up to Lahore and Peshawar in modern-day Pakistan. At the same time, they sparked a massive cultural revival. They brought back Sanskrit, replaced Persian administrative words with Marathi, and built incredible centers of art and medicine, like in Thanjavur down in the south. Here is the biggest misconception in Indian history. Most people think the British took India from the Mughals. They didn't. By the late 18th century, the Marathas were the undisputed masters of the subcontinent. The British had to fight 3 brutal Anglo-Maratha wars before they could finally take control of the country. The Marathas didn't just build an empire. Through their brilliant tactics, their fair justice system, and their unbreakable spirit of Swarajya, they planted the very first seeds of the dream that imagine you own the most successful, wealthy business in the entire world. Everyone wants to buy your products. Your bank vaults are overflowing, and life is perfect. Suddenly, a group of armed strangers shows up at your front door. They smile and say they just want to trade with you. But slowly, over the next few years, they start turning your employees against each other. They bribe your managers, hijack your delivery trucks, and before you know it, they have locked you out of your own building and claimed your entire business as their own. That isn't the plot for a corporate heist movie. That is exactly what happened to the richest country on earth. Welcome to our topic, the age of colonialism. To understand this, we first need to define colonialism. It is a system where a powerful nation takes complete political and economic control over a weaker region. From the 15th century onwards, European nations like Spain, Portugal, Britain, and France sailed across the globe, searching for raw materials, new markets, and ultimate power. They often justified this by claiming they were on a civilizing mission, calling local cultures primitive. But in reality, it was about pure greed. And in the 16th century, the ultimate prize for that greed was India. You see, before the Europeans arrived, India was an absolute titan of the global economy. Along with China, we produced a massive share of the world's GDP. We were exporting highly demanded spices, beautiful cotton textiles, gems, and legendary Wood's steel. India was prosperous, wealthy, and thriving. The first to arrive and try to grab a slice of this wealth were the Portuguese. In 1498, Vasco da Gama discovered a direct sea route to India. But the Portuguese didn't just want to trade peacefully, they wanted total domination. They captured Goa and used brutal violence. They even introduced the Kartas system, basically demanding mafia-style protection money. If an Indian ship wanted to sail in the Indian Ocean without a Portuguese pass, it would be seized or sunk. They also launched a terrifying inquisition in Goa, ruthlessly punishing anyone who didn't follow their religion. But did Indians just sit back and accept this? Absolutely not. Enter the fierce queens of Ullal. In the 16th century, Rani Abaka I formed powerful alliances and fiercely fought off the Portuguese. And her successor, Rani Abaka II, took it a step further. She literally hurled flaming fireballs made from coconut shells at Portuguese warships. Their legendary courage is still celebrated today. Next up were the Dutch, looking to dominate the spice trade. But they messed with the wrong kingdom. At the legendary Battle of Colachil in 1741, King Marthanda Varma of Travancore completely crushed the Dutch East India Company. It was one of the rarest, most incredible moments in history where an Asian power utterly destroyed a European fleet on the battlefield. Then came the French. Their Governor-General Dupleix realized a sneaky new strategy. You don't need to bring a massive army from Europe. You just need to train local Indian soldiers in European tactics and secretly interfere in local royal family drama to install puppet kings who will do whatever France wants. Quick break. If you are loving this history breakdown and want to master every single chapter in your syllabus just like this, hit that subscribe button right now. Thousands of students are learning with us every day, and we don't want you to fall behind. Let's go. But the absolute grandmasters of this sneaky, manipulative game were the British. The English East India Company didn't start as a conquering army. They started as a simple trading corporation setting up posts in Surat, Madras, and Calcutta. But while outwardly acting like innocent merchants, they were watching, waiting, and perfecting the ultimate cheat code for conquest: divide and rule. Why fight a massive Indian army when you can just buy off their general? That is exactly what the British commander Robert Clive did at the famous Battle of Plassey in 1757. He bribed Mir Jafar, the top commander of Nawab Siraj-ud-Daulah. Because of this ultimate betrayal, the Nawab's massive army barely even fought. The British won an entire kingdom at almost zero cost. Once they had a foothold, the British stopped relying on just wars. They used devious legal tricks to steal land. They introduced the subsidiary alliance, forcing Indian kings to pay for British troops to protect them, essentially stripping the kings of their independence. And then they brought in the terrifying doctrine of lapse. This rule stated that if an Indian ruler died without a natural born male heir, the British would refuse to recognize an adopted son and simply steal the entire kingdom for themselves. Through bribery, betrayal, and fate legal rules, a trading company managed to swallow a subcontinent. By the time of independence, India was fractured into over 500 princely states, all forced to bow to British power. The colonizers claimed they brought civilization and modern technology, but in reality, they drained the wealth of the richest region on earth, completely destroying our local industries to feed their own empire. But as history always shows, you can only push people so far before they push back. Imagine you and your friends are trying to decide which movie to watch. You have 5 friends, but you only let the 2 tallest friends vote. The other 3 just have to sit there and accept whatever movie is chosen. That sounds completely ridiculous and unfair, right? But for a very long time, that is exactly how countries were run. Only the rich, the educated, or sometimes only men were allowed to vote. But when India became an independent nation, we did something completely revolutionary. Welcome to our next chapter, Universal Franchise and India's Electoral System. The framers of the Indian Constitution established a powerful rule called Universal Adult Franchise. This simply means that every single Indian citizen who is 18 years of age or older has the absolute right to vote. It doesn't matter what your gender is, how much money you make, what religion you follow, or whether you can read or write. One person gets exactly one vote, and every single vote has the exact same value. India granted women the right to vote from the very first day of our republic. Some older democracies, like Switzerland, didn't let women vote until 1971. Now imagine trying to organize that movie vote, but instead of 5 friends, you have 980 million people. That is how many people were eligible to vote in the 2024 general elections. India is a massive, geographically complex country. There are voters living in freezing Himalayan mountains, deep inside dense forests, in remote deserts, and on tiny islands. Who organizes this massive, chaotic process? A highly powerful, independent constitutional body called the Election Commission of India, ECI. The ECI was established in 1950, and their job is to ensure every single election is free and fair. They don't just sit in an office in Delhi. Electoral officials literally trek through snow, cross rivers on boats, and hike through jungles just to set up a polling station for a handful of remote voters. They set up wheelchair ramps and provide braille-enabled voter information so that absolutely no one is left behind. But the ECI's job isn't just logistics. They also have to act as the ultimate referee to stop politicians from cheating. As soon as an election is announced, the ECI enforces a strict rulebook called the Model Code of Conduct, MCC. This code strictly stops the ruling party from suddenly announcing shiny new government schemes just to bribe voters. It stops politicians from giving out cash or gifts and ensures that candidates behave with restraint so they don't cause riots or disturb public order. If you break the code, the ECI can take serious legal action. Quick break. If you're finding this breakdown helpful and want to understand every tricky concept in your syllabus with this much ease, hit that subscribe button right now. Thousands of students are learning with us, and we don't want you to miss out. Let's go. So, how do the actual elections work? For the national government, India is divided into 543 distinct areas called constituencies. In each constituency, multiple candidates run for a seat in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament. They use a simple rule called first past the post. Whoever gets the most votes in that specific area wins the seat and becomes a member of parliament. MP. Whichever political party or coalition wins the majority of those 543 seats gets to form the national government, and their leader becomes the Prime Minister. The exact same process happens at the state level to elect MLAs, members of the Legislative Assembly, and choose the Chief Minister. But not every election is direct. Some are indirect elections. For example, the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of parliament. Regular citizens don't vote for these members. Instead, the MLAs that we elected vote for them. It is like a school council being elected by the class monitors instead of the whole school. The exact same thing happens for the highest office in the land, the President of India. The President is elected by an electoral college which is made up of all the elected MPs and MLAs across the country. But despite this incredible system, Indian democracy is not perfect. We still face massive challenges. Sometimes, corrupt politicians try to use illegal money power to buy votes. Sometimes, candidates with criminal backgrounds manage to run for office. And in some big cities, we suffer from voter apathy, which means people are just too lazy to get off their couch and go vote. Democracy is not a machine that runs on its own. It is completely powered by you. The only way to stop criminals and corruption is by having an informed, active, and vigilant electorate. Asking the right questions, checking the facts, and casting a responsible vote is not just a right. It is the most important duty of an Indian citizen. Imagine trying to organize a simple dinner for 10 of your friends. One person wants pizza, another wants sushi, two are on a diet, and someone else is lactose intolerant. It is a nightmare. Now imagine trying to make daily decisions for 1.4 billion people. Total chaos, right? That is exactly why, after sacrificing so much to win our independence, India didn't just guess how to run a country. We wrote an ultimate rule book, the Constitution, and gave every single adult the power to vote. And to organize all those voices, we built a massive, brilliant decision-making machine, the Parliament. Welcome to our topic, where we look at how the world's largest democracy actually functions. The Parliament isn't just one big room where people shout at each other. It is a carefully designed bicameral system, meaning it has two houses. First, we have the Lok Sabha, or the House of the People. This is where the representatives that you and your parents vote for sit. But the founders knew India was too incredibly huge and diverse for just one room. So, they created a second house, the Rajya Sabha, or the Council of States, to ensure that regional voices and state interests were fiercely protected. And sitting right at the top of this structure, tying it all together, is the President of India. So, what does this massive machine actually do? Its primary job is making the rules. We call this the Legislature. But a law doesn't just magically appear overnight. It starts its life as a bill, basically a rough draft of an idea. It gets debated, scrutinized, and voted on in both houses. Take the Right to Education RTE Act, for example. The idea of free education was debated for nearly a century. It was introduced as a bill. Politicians argued over how to fund the schools and pay the teachers. And finally, in 2009, it passed both houses, got the president's signature, and transformed into an act, a binding law that literally created legal pathways for millions of children to go to school. But making the rules is only half the battle. You need someone to actually put those rules into action. Enter the Union Executive. This is the Prime Minister and their Council of Ministers. They are the ones doing the heavy lifting, running the government departments, managing the economy, and enforcing the laws. Now, if the Prime Minister and the Executive have all that power, what stops them from acting like kings? A brilliant concept called checks and balances. The executive cannot just do whatever it wants. It has to answer directly to the legislature. During something called the question hour, members of parliament get to stand up and grill the ministers, demanding answers about where the money is going and why certain policies are failing. And believe it or not, these sessions aren't always just angry shouting matches. The Indian Parliament actually has a beautiful tradition of poetry and humor. Finance ministers have quoted ancient Tamil texts while reading the national budget, and prime ministers have famously used Urdu poetry to playfully roast the opposition right in the middle of a serious debate. Quick break. If you're loving this breakdown and want to master every single tricky concept in your syllabus just like this, hit that subscribe button right now. Thousands of students are learning with us every day, and we don't want you to fall behind. Let's go. Now, the parliament in New Delhi cannot possibly fix a broken street light in Kerala or build a local hospital in Gujarat. So, this entire massive system is perfectly mirrored at the state level. Instead of a parliament, each state has a state assembly, the Vidhan Sabha, and in some states, an upper house called the Vidhan Parishad, filled with MLAs. To stop the central government and the state governments from constantly fighting over who is in charge, the constitution brilliantly divided the powers into three lists. The union list is for national issues like the army and foreign affairs. The state list is for local issues like the police and public health. And the concurrent list is for shared issues like forests and education, where both can make laws. And hovering above all of this, the parliament, the executive, and the states is the judiciary. The Supreme Court and the High Courts act as the ultimate referees. If the parliament tries to pass a law that goes against the constitution, the judiciary will step in and strike it down immediately. But here is the harsh reality. This massive democratic machine is not perfect. Sometimes politicians don't show up for work. Important sessions get disrupted by endless shouting, causing crucial bills to be delayed for years. And shockingly, some elected members even have criminal records. The system is incredibly powerful, but it only works if the people holding the power are held accountable. And who holds them accountable? You. Democracy isn't a machine you can just turn on and walk away from. It is fueled entirely by informed citizens. When you ask questions, read the news, debate with your friends, and eventually cast your vote, you are the one steering the country. As former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee famously said in the Lok Sabha, governments will come and go, parties will rise and fall, but the nation and its democracy must endure. The rulebook has been written, the machine has been built, but ensuring it actually works for the people? That is entirely up to us. Imagine you want to bake a simple chocolate cake. You can't just snap your fingers and make a cake appear. You need four very specific things: ingredients, a chef, an oven, and someone to actually organize the recipe. The entire global economy works exactly the same way. Whether you are baking a cake or manufacturing a smartphone, every single product goes through a process called production. And to make production happen, businesses need four magical ingredients known as the factors of production. Welcome to our next chapter, where we break down the recipe of the global economy. Ingredient 1: land, natural resources. In economics, land doesn't just mean the dirt you stand on. It means every single gift from nature used to make a product. It includes the physical ground where a factory is built, but it also includes the water, the forests, the minerals, the oil, and even the sunlight. Businesses either have to buy this land or pay rent to use it. If we run out of these natural resources, production stops completely. Ingredient 2: labor, human resources. You can have all the raw materials in the world, but without humans to work them, they are useless. Labor is the physical and mental effort people put into making goods and services. A construction worker lifting bricks and a scientist inventing a new medicine are both providing labor. But there is a massive difference between basic labor and human capital. Labor is just the physical effort. Human capital is the special skills, knowledge, and expertise that make that effort incredibly effective. How do you build human capital? Education and training. Teaching a civil engineer how to design a safe bridge. Healthcare. A healthy worker is faster, more creative, and misses fewer days of work. Culture. Just look at Japan. Their cultural concept of kaizen, continuous improvement, transformed their entire country into a global superpower. Historical fact. Ancient Indians treated work as a literal form of worship. Skilled sculptors would spend their entire lives perfecting massive temples without ever expecting to see the final masterpiece. They even treated their tools as sacred, a tradition we still practice today during Ayudha Puja. Ingredient 3. Capital. This is the money and the tools. Capital includes the cash needed to rent the land and pay the workers, but it also includes the durable physical assets, the heavy machinery, the delivery trucks, the computers, and the factory buildings. Where do businesses get capital? Sometimes from personal savings, sometimes from massive bank loans, and sometimes by selling shares to the public on the stock market. Ingredient 4. Entrepreneurship. You have the land, the workers, and the machines. But who puts it all together? The entrepreneur. This is the visionary who identifies a problem, takes a massive financial risk, gathers the other three factors, and works exhaustingly hard to build a successful business. Look at the legendary J.R.D. Tata. He didn't just want to make money, he wanted to build India. In 1932, he founded India's very first airline, which became Air India, and expanded his empire into steel, cars, and power, all while ensuring his workers had excellent, safe conditions. The ultimate enabler, technology. There is one invisible force that makes all four factors work better: technology. It allows businesses to do things faster, cheaper, and more efficiently. Whether it is a farmer using a drone to spray fertilizer, a doctor using a robot for surgery, or a student using the government's Swayam portal to take free online courses, technology connects everything. But here is the catch. Just because we can produce massive amounts of goods doesn't mean we should do it recklessly. We have massive responsibilities. If a leather factory in Tamil Nadu dumps toxic chemicals into the river, they are destroying the land factor for everyone else. Businesses must practice corporate social responsibility, CSR. In fact, in 2014, India became the very first nation in the world to pass a law forcing large companies to invest 2% of their profits back into impactful social initiatives. So, the next time you hold a smartphone or wear a new shirt, think about the recipe. Think about the land it came from, the human capital that designed it, the machines that built it, the entrepreneur who risked it all, and the technology that made it possible.